How are you doing today? I like to say there's two types of companies, those who have been hit and those who will be hit again. I'm just saying. Let's see here. That is my United States Most Wanted picture. Yeah. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada the night before I'd stolen $160,000 from ATMs. Woke up the next morning, signed on to cartersmarket.com. There's my name, U.S. Most Wanted beside it. There are things in life known as aha moments. This was more of an type moment. So I did what any normal person would do. I loaded up and I went to Disney World. Yeah, you laugh. I really went to Disney World. Lasted about 6 weeks. The Secret Service, they came and got me, sent me to prison. Then I escaped from prison. I prefer not to think of it as escape. I think of it as the institution could no longer benefit me, so I decided to release myself on my own recognizance. Got even more time for that one. So who is this idiot up here talking to you? Secret Service called me the original internet godfather. What does it take to get a title like that? 39 felonies. Placed on the United States Most Wanted list and escaped from prison, and I built the first organized cybercrime community, Shadow Crew. Shadow Crew was a precursor to today's darknet markets and laid the foundation for the way modern cybercrime channels still operate today. Those 39 felonies had to do with refining modern financial cybercrime as we know it. ATO, counterfeit credit cards, new account fraud, replacement fraud, CNP fraud. I'm the first guy that sold fraudulent bank accounts online. I introduced prepaid debit cards online, just a number of notorious firsts. Now that is not where I got my start. My start actually began much, much earlier than that. 10 years old. Jesus, I say 10 years old, it hits me every time. I'm from Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is one of these areas like the Panhandle of Florida, parts of Louisiana, that if you're not fortunate enough to have a job, you might be involved in some sort of fraud or scam, some sort of hustle. My mom was like the captain of the entire fraud industry. No crime too big or too small. At one point, she stole a 108,000-pound Caterpillar D9 bulldozer. At another point, took a slip and fall in a convenience store, tried to sue the owner. That was my mom. My dad wasn't like that. My dad was the enabler. He loved my mom so much that whatever ideas she had, he would follow through with because he was afraid of losing her until finally she leaves. My mom was this abusive parent. Not really physically. She could be, but more mentally, verbally, emotionally. She was very negligent. She used to parade men in front of my dad. My dad would sit there and just cry. When she finally leaves my dad, she continued on with the activities. She'd either take me and my sister, I was 10, my sister 9. She'd take me and my sister with her and leave us in the car, or most of the time she'd just leave us at the house. And this one time we'd been at the house a few days, no food in the house. I was a kid, I get the worst part from my mom and my dad. My mom, I get that criminal mindset. My dad, I get that fear of being abandoned all the time. So I'm the kid that, 10 years old, posts up at the window, seeing if mom's going to come home, walks out in the driveway, see if she's driving down the street. Denise wasn't that kid. Denise was this just angry child. So we've been alone for a few days. Denise walks in, she's got this pack of pork chops. And I'm like, where'd you get that? And she was like, I stole them. And I'm like, show me how you did that. So she takes me over, shows me how she steals food, and I'm like, hey, that's the best idea ever. So we start stealing food, look across the way, well, there's Kmart. Kmart's got clothes. So we start stealing clothes, and it becomes like this perverted form of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Books, games, jewelry, music, toys, yes! Until mom comes home, notices all the ill-gotten loot, and asks where it came from. And when you're 10 years old, you can't lie very well. I've always been that liar. Looked at my mom, I was like, we found it. My mom's like, no, you didn't find that. My sister, she didn't lie at all. She stands up, half proud, half pissed off. We stole it! My mom, she looks at my sister. Show me how you did that. And she joins us. Not only does she join us, but she goes and gets her mom to join us. And we become this intergenerational shoplifting ring in Eastern Kentucky. Used to take these road trips. They'd go to JCPenney's and steal clothes and jewelry. I'd go to the bookstore and steal books because that's the guy that I am. Well, they got caught shoplifting. I did not. I continued on. As I got older, I got more and more involved in the types of crime that side of my mom's family, my mom committed. You see these guys beside the road collecting money with a bucket. or just handouts. There's always been that statement, oh, I bet they got a house and a car. Matter of fact, some of them do. I used to be that kid. 13, I was doing that. Financed my first marriage by faking a car accident in 1994. Used the insurance money, get married, moved from Hazard, Kentucky to Lexington to go to UK. Literature and theater. So I said, I'm that kid that was always scared of being abandoned all the time. So idiot here. I told my wife, I was like, hey, you don't have to work. I'll work. Don't worry about it. No, I'll do the cooking and cleaning. You just, because I wanted to show her, I love you and I'm here for you. So I had a full-time job, full class load, all the cooking and cleaning. Something had to give. What gave was the job. Well, that proclivity toward fraud I've already got. Had to find a way to make money some way. No idea how until one day I find eBay and I'm like, that's a nice site. No idea how. Make money on that until one night Bill O'Reilly's watching. I'm watching Inside Edition. Bill O'Reilly's on there talking about Beanie Babies. How many people remember Beanie Babies? Oh yeah. These were the high dollar collectible in the mid to late 90s. This one, Peanut the Royal Blue Elephant, sold for $1,500. I'm sitting there like, $1,500? I need to find me a Peanut. Next day, skip class, go around all the Hallmark stores looking for Peanut. Can't find him because he's on eBay for $1,500. But, they've got all these little gray elephants for $8. Buy a gray elephant for $8. Stop by the grocery store, pick up a pack of blue RIT dye. Go home, try to dye the little guy. Turns out he's made out of polyester, doesn't hold dye very well. Get him out of the bath. Looks like he's got the mange. But I ripped a lady off of $1,500 for that. Yeah, I found a picture of a real one, posted it on eBay. She thought I had the real thing. Wins the bid. I immediately send her a message. Lady, we've never dealt before. I don't know if I can trust you. What I need you to do is send me a U.S. Postal money order. Once that clears, I'll send you your elephants. She did that. The next week I send the elephant, immediately get a phone call. This is not what I ordered. My response, lady, you ordered a blue elephant. I sent you a blue-ish elephant. And right there is where I learned my first lesson of cybercrime. And that lesson is, if you delay a victim long enough, if you just keep putting them off, a lot of them get so exasperated, they throw their hands up in the air, walk away, you never hear from them again. And very, very few ever complain to law enforcement. First lesson of cybercrime, first cybercrime I committed right there. Now that was very rudimentary. Did it in my own name, everything else. As I continued on, I got better and better. Started dealing in pirated software. Pirated software turned into installing mod chips into game systems so you could play the software. Finally, that was installing chips into cable boxes so you could watch all the pay-per-view. Finally, in 96, 97, a Canadian judge ruled that it was legal for Canadian citizens to pirate satellite DSS signals, those small 18-inch dishes. He said, hey, since RCA is not selling them up here, it's legal for my citizens to pirate those signals. Well, what happens is overnight, that opens up an entire industry in the United States. You go down to Best Buy, buy a system for $100, get it out in the parking lot, pull the card out, throw the rest of the system away in the parking lot, take it home, program it, ship it up to Canada, $500. Started doing that, making a lot of money. Had so many orders, could not fill them all, so I thought to myself, why do I need to fill any of them? They're in Canada, I'm down here, who are they going to complain to? It's illegal. So I didn't fill any of the orders, made even more money, so much so that I got worried about how much was coming in. Figured the best thing that I could do is get a driver's license, open up a bank account under that fake driver's license, launder the money through that. Now, being at university, you would think I would know where to get a driver's license. Not a clue. Get online, think I find a guy, send him $200, send him my picture, he rips me off. Yeah. And I am still, not to this day, 20-some years later, I am still pissed off about that one. The result, because I still didn't need the ID, the result was ShadowCrew.com. As I said, ShadowCrew was a precursor to today's darknet markets. Started with a website called Counterfeit Library. Me and two guys set that up. Counterfeit Library transitions over to ShadowCrew. Some of the people involved in ShadowCrew, to give you an idea of what we did, types of crimes committed, what happened to them, everything else. The guy in the glasses over there, that is David Thomas. He was on the run for check fraud out of Nebraska, completely broke. We were so organized at that point in time, we took up a collection for him, sent it to him. I got him a job working with some Ukrainians. He gets caught in Issaquah, Washington, hitting Outpost.com for $36,000 in CNP fraud. Flips, goes to work for the FBI. No idea where he is today. I think he's still in witness protection. The guy in the suit, that is David Appleyard. He's a retired mortgage broker. He gave up brokering mortgages because he had a taste for the illicit side of life. 5 years in prison. Idiot in the middle, 7.5. The guy with the flag behind him, Dmitry Golubov. If you've ever wondered where modern credit card theft begins with him. He's from the Ukraine. He saw the success we were having with Counterfeit Library. Besides, he wants to start his own website called Carter Planet because he was a spammer. He was getting all this credit card information. He said, I wonder if anyone will buy credit card information. Turns out they will. So he sets up Carter Planet. He doesn't serve any real time. He gets caught, arrested in 2006, spends 6 weeks in a Ukrainian jail, at which point a politician over there comes out and says, hey, he's really a good guy. They let him out. He goes on to start his own political party called the Internet Party of the Ukraine. It's a platform to stomp out fraud. He's currently on parliament in the Ukraine. He stands a chance of being the next president of the Ukraine if Vladimir Putin doesn't kill him, which I'm opting for that. The guy on the bottom, Roman Vega. How many people know what a credit card dump is? A couple of hands. For those who don't, on the back of your credit or debit card, there's a magnetic stripe. On that magnetic stripe are 3 data tracks. The first data track is the customer's name. Second data track is the card number, an equal sign, 16-digit algorithm out the side of that. Third data track is called indiscriminate data. No one uses it. What's sold on illegal marketplaces is the second data track, and here's why. What you can do is when you swipe a card or you insert the chip, the only information that's sent for verification is the second data track. So what a criminal can do is he buys 10 of these things, he creates one fake ID and whatever name he wants to do it in, he programs track 1 to match the name on the fake ID. That way when he swipes the card or inserts the chip, on the terminal for the POS, on the cashier's terminal, it shows track 1. Meanwhile, track 2 sent for verification. Everything looks nice, warm, and fuzzy. Back then, he was the first seller of these things. I was his United States seller. Back then, these things sold for $30. Today, these things sell for roughly $30. The guy with the goatee. He started out as our forum techie. He goes on to be the largest credit card thief in history. And I was watching the slideshow before I got up here, and it had Heartland Payment Systems on there, and I'm like, he hit Heartland Payment Systems, Dave & Buster's, TJ Maxx, 170 million credit card numbers, 2 20-year prison sentences. Guy in the orange, that is Max Butler. He's in the book Kingpin. I'm in that as well. He gets 17 years. Matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, he was indicted while serving time in prison. Turns out he has a cell phone in there, which those things cost $1,000 to get in. So he gets $1,000, gets a cell phone sent into prison, or a guard brings one into him. He uses his cell phone to get on the dark web, get stolen credit card data, funds his inmate buddies' commissary accounts, then uses the stolen credit cards to buy a drone to have drugs and other cell phones dropped into the prison. He's going to get another decade at least on top of that. Yeah. The guy in the black and white, that is Maxic, or Maxim, a Turkish national. He worked with Albert Gonzalez on the Heartland breach. He was arrested at an airport in Turkey. They got his laptop. On his laptop, he had TrueCrypt. The entire thing was encrypted. They looked at it and said, hey, we need the key to that. He was like, I'm not giving you the key to that. They're like, that's fine. We got a place for you. So they throw him in a Turkish jail for 11 days, at which point he promptly gives them the key. And at which point they promptly give him 30 years. I've seen Midnight Express. I'm not even sure if he's still alive. Guy in the bottom. Guy in the bottom. That's Jonathan James. Very, very competent hacker. At a very young age, 13, 14, broke into the Pentagon, NASA, DOD, a few other things. Got out of that trouble. Decided he wanted to go into credit card theft. Partners with Albert Gonzalez. Gets arrested with Albert Gonzalez. Whether true or not, it was true enough for him. He thought law enforcement was going to lay the blame for those breaches at his doorstep. So what does he do? Gets up one day, walks in his dad's bedroom, gets out the .45, walks in the bathroom, writes a note, steps in the shower, blows his brains out. That's the end of Jonathan James. Now, why do I show you these pictures? There are 2 reasons. The first is that no one who is ever involved in cybercrime ever comes to a good end. It always goes south. If you're lucky, you get 7.5. If you're not, you end up with 2 20s, life sentence on a beach in Cyprus with your head and hands cut off, as happened with the Evolution Marketplace owner, stuff like that. The other reason I show you this Nobody up here is wearing a hoodie. Nobody's 400 pounds in their mom's basement sitting there going, Mom, bring me a sandwich and cut the crusts off, with the Matrix background flowing in the back. That is not what a cyber criminal looks like. We have this perception that cyber criminals are these upper tier computer hackers able to break into any type of computer system they want to break into. Not really. Those people are out there, but their numbers are very few. 99%, they're just simply very good social engineers. They know what it takes to manipulate a person into giving up access, information, data, cash. Social engineers, that's most of them. The reasons people commit these crimes, there's only three. Status, cash, ideology. That's it. Status, say you're able to, let's take Amazon or Apple for an example. Say someone's got a stolen credit card, he's wanting to hit Apple. Apple has outstanding security, outstanding. It's almost impossible to use stolen credit card information to buy a MacBook on the Apple site. But if you're that guy that can do that, you gain the status and the respect of every single person within that cybercrime community that you're a part of. So status, you do these things for the respect of others. Ideology, elections, North Korea, stuff like that. We're seeing this transition now from financial over to ideology. But most of the time people do it for cash. All these guys I showed you, cash, me, cash. I mean, I like to say I did it for other reasons. But no, at the end of the day, it's cash. It's cash. I mean, I'm the guy that had to buy love. I'm not talking about strippers and escorts and crap like that. I mean, I did that. But the people who were important to me, it wasn't enough for me to tell them that I love them. I had to show it. I had to show it by giving them some sort of expensive crap. This is what my love is worth. That's the reason I commit crimes. I was married for 9 years. Financed that first marriage with income tax, with faking a car accident. Married for 9 years, lied to my wife the entire 9 years. First 3 years, she had no idea what I did for a living. Told her I was an eBay reseller until cops start showing up at the door. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm selling items that don't exist. Next 6 years, it was, oh, I've stopped. Oh, I'm going to stop. Oh, I will stop. Oh, just a little while longer. Oh, it's not as serious as you think it is, until she finally figures out, oh, this guy's not about to stop, and she leaves me. Well, that fear of being abandoned, boy, that hit hard right then. I caused it, but it hit hard. I'm going around the house in this just deep depression. I'm getting suicidal, everything else. I'm like, I got to do something. So I go through the phone book, get in the yellow pages, looking for a psychologist, crying. Find one criminal psychology, because I'm figuring that's what I need. Call her up, tell her, crying to her. She's like, come in now. And I go in and tell her everything. And she's a psychologist trying to get me to stop breaking the law and go into real estate. So see her about 3 months. I think she's doing a good job. And what happens is one night I just get lonely. So I'd never been to a strip club before. Walking to a strip club, first time in my life, I was 35. And I am that idiot. I am that guy, literally that guy, that falls in love with the first stripper that he sees. I walk in, she walks by, I'm like, that would be the girl for me. Because of that, my sister disowned me. Not the law. She could put up with breaking the law, but that line in the sand, that was that, ooh, yeah, oh, nobody. She disowns me. So I get arrested, go to prison, escape from prison, arrested again. She's not talking to me the entire time. After the escape, my dad, he comes to visit. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky again, 10-minute visitation. Son, can I do anything for you? And I'm like, yeah, you can tell my sister I said I love her. Dad calls up Denise. Denise is in Hickory, North Carolina, 7 hours away. She gets in the car, drives 7.5 hours to come see her dumbass brother for 10 minutes to tell me she loves me. After that, they ship me out to West Texas, where I don't see her again for 5 years. That's what got me turned around. Not prison. Prison, get used to prison. And let me tell you, anybody been out to West Texas? Anybody? Couple of hands. Big Spring, Texas. That's where I was. Prairie dogs, scorpions, tarantulas. So hot there, so hot. Warnings come on the radio telling you what streets not to drive on because they're melted. Melted streets. Can't plan an escape on melted streets. So I get there, that's when I find out what a real prison is. Walk in the door, prisons aren't ran by guards. No. Prisons are ran by gangs. Didn't know that until I get to a real prison. Walk in the door, I'm met at the door because you're met at the door by whatever race you are. I'm met at the door by the treasurer of the Aryan Brotherhood. Treasurer, oh yeah, they collect dues. Looks at me, any more white guys come in? I'm like, 4 or 5? What are you in here for? Computer crime. Well, can't say computer crime in prison. That doesn't mean credit cards and hacking and all this crap. Oh, no. Computer crime in prison, that means child pornography. So I mistakenly told the Aryan Brotherhood I was this pedophile. What does he do? He goes and gets these really big dudes. They crowd around like, what did you say you were in here for? I'm sitting there trying to tell them. They're like, you know what, sounds good. You still said computer crime. First month, everyone thinks I'm this pedophile. You have to watch every single place you go. You try to stay inside of guards and everything else. That's fine. At the end of the first month, Wired magazine comes on the compound. It's talking about the tax fraud, the hacking, the credit cards, the forums, all this other stuff. It's got this one line that says, Brett Johnson, comma, Secret Service informant. Oh, you ain't a pedophile. You just a snitch. Yeah, warden calls me in. Do you feel safe? Well, if you tell them you don't feel safe, they throw you in the hole for 8 months. I just got through doing 8 months solitary on the escape. So I'm like, yes, sir, completely safe. He's like, hit your bunk. Let me know if anything goes on. They try to confiscate all the magazines from the compound. Can't. Next day I walk in, there's the treasurer laying on his bunk, magazine wide open. I'm like, walk up to him. I'm like, hey, Nick, what's going on? Oh, just doing some reading. Anything interesting? It's getting there. Let me save you the trouble. Take the magazine, point the line out to him. I'm like, do we have a problem? Well, did you snitch on anybody that's here? No. Well, until someone gets here, you told on we ain't got a problem. By the way, I need you to do something for me. Turns out in federal prison, everyone has to work. Doesn't matter what you do, got to have a job. I got a job in education teaching a book club literature class. Every Wednesday, 6 to 8:30 p.m. Some odd reason, every single Aryan on the compound signs up for this book lit class. Now, did we teach literature every Wednesday, 6 to 8:30? Absolutely not. Every Wednesday, 6 to 8:30, we taught fraud. Whatever you guys need to know, I'm here for you. Help me help you. And that's how I didn't have to join a gang. That's why I didn't get my ass beaten every single day. Even that didn't turn me around. I went through 3 prison riots, saw 2 people beaten, literally beaten to death. 4 suicides. That didn't get me turned around. You get used to that. What got me was my sister. That's what got me. It took 2.5 years. 2.5 years for me to say, oh, I didn't, because I always said I did it for my wife, my girlfriend, my family, my sister. No, it took 2.5 years for me to say, no, I did it because I chose to do it. So I got out in 2011. No taste of breaking the law whatsoever. I was on 3 years probation. Could not touch a computer. Had job offers from Deloitte, from KnowBe4, a couple other companies, a couple of payment processors. Couldn't take them. Got to a point I was applying for fast food jobs. Nope, that's a computer. Okay, what about a waiter's position? Nope, that's a computer and credit cards. Idiot! So I couldn't get a job. Only job I could get, I was bumming money from my dad. I was bumming money from my sister. I had a roommate taking care of half the rent. Went and signed up for food stamps so I could eat. Didn't have any money. Had a cat, because they tell you when you leave, it's like, find a job. Find something you care about. Chances of you recidivating, going back to it, really low at that point. So I had a cat, big cat guy. Hadn't had enough money to feed my cat, and I didn't have enough money to buy toilet paper. So what I did was I go to the dollar store, buy the cat some food. On the way out, they've got this kiosk by the door. It's had toilet paper with it, sitting on it. That's the first crime I committed when I got out right there. And what happens is my wife now, Michelle, she ends up finding me about that same time. I'd been dating the same type of women I had been dating. It's like I had a sign that said, oh, I'm ready to go back to prison anytime. Michelle finds me. I end up moving in with her about 2 months after that. Finally get a job. The only job I could get was pushing a lawnmower. Manual labor. That was it. And the way I got that, it was a guy asked earlier, it was off the books thing. This guy was advertising on Craigslist, had Michelle go through Craigslist, look for jobs. I called the guy up. He was running the business out of his house. Go down there and talk to him. I'm talking to him 20 minutes. He finally looks at me. He's like, so I told him I'd never done this type of work before. He was like, can I ask you something? I was like, yeah. He's like, you don't look like the type of person that will do this type of job. I was like, he's like, are you on the run or something? So I tell him everything. He looks at me and is like, I'm going to have to think about that. Calls me back 3 days later. He's like, if I hire you, will you work? And I'm like, dude, if you'll hire me, I'll work, man. So he gave me a job. You can probably tell by looking at me, I'm not the guy that does manual labor. Even when I escaped, I didn't really run. I just kind of walked quickly. So I'm out there busting my ass, pushing that lawnmower 10 hours a day, $400 a week. Come home, pass out, literally pass out on the bed. Wake up the next morning, take a shower, hit it again. But I'm happy. I'm doing something. I'm actually doing something. And what happens is it gets cold. It gets cold, you can't mow the grass. That reason I commit crime, that thing pops up again. That Michelle was on when working. I'm like, I gotta do something. I gotta show her. I gotta show her that I'm worth it. That I gotta show her I love her. So what I do? Well, I'm like, at least I can bring food in the house. Get on the dark web, buy some stolen credit cards, start ordering food, get caught, go back to prison for 10 months. Probation officer at my sentence, and he stands up. He's like, we think he's a good guy. The prosecutor says the exact same thing. We think it's a one-time thing. Judge gives me 10 months. And Michelle, she never questioned it. She never hesitated. She was just right there the entire time. I just want to find out she needed me for me, not what I could give her. I don't think I'd ever had that before. So I get out of prison. We'll get married shortly after I get out. But still, you look at my resume, who's going to hire this guy? And I know I'll go so far. I know what my triggers are. While I'm off probation, I looked at Michelle. I was like, let me see what I can do. So of all things, I sign on to LinkedIn, reach out to this guy named Keith Malarski. He's this FBI super cop out of Pittsburgh. He retired last month. He was involved in my arrest, all these other cybercrime arrests over the past 2 decades. I sent him a message. I was like, hey, man, I just want you to know I have huge respect for everything you did. You did a great job, and just wanted to tell you that. By the way, I'd like to be legal. And the guy believed me. Gave me references, advice. To this day, he does the same thing. From there, it was head of the Identity Theft Resource Council. It was Card Not Present Group. Microsoft flies in, gives me a job. Once that happens, I've got all these financial companies, merchants, retailers, everything else. That's my story. But today, after telling all that, what we're talking about is cybercrime as a whole, the current state of cybercrime. As I said, the 3 motivators, the 3 reasons people commit cybercrime: status, cash, ideology. There's a 4th factor in there. It's the willingness to do it. The willingness to do it. A lot of people can have motivations, but you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to hit Heartland Payment Systems. You have to be willing to do an ATO, to talk to somebody over the phone, to try to convince that person that you're someone else. You have to be willing to escape from prison. You have to be willing to fly a drone inside a prison. You have to be willing to do that. So there aren't very many people out there that do that, but there's a lot. There's still a lot. It's that cybercrime mindset that does it. When you begin cybercrime, the weird thing is that even before you touch a computer, either you come knowing a certain set of rules, or you find those out either the hard way or the easy way. The hard way is you go to prison, you get back out, and you're like, okay, I should have done all this other stuff. It's called OPSEC, Operational Security, for criminals. And even before you touch a computer, there's a whole list of things that you should not be doing or that you should be doing. First and foremost, never trust anyone. That's the big, big thing, trust. Even with the good guys, it's trust, right? How do you trust the other person on the other line? Shadow Crew, we've lost connection. Shadow Crew solved that problem. Shadow Crew gave a trust mechanism for criminals to use. Before Shadow Crew, the only way you could engage in cybercrime, are we all right back there? The only way you could engage in cybercrime was going on like an IRC message channel, kind of this rolling chat board where you had no idea who to trust, who had what skill levels, who you could buy product from, who actually had product compared to who did not. Because let's face it, all these people are criminals. The chances of you being ripped off by someone who didn't have anything at all, pretty high. Shadow Crew solves that problem. It gives that trust mechanism. It gives a review system. It gives a vouching system that criminals could use. So now your name becomes your brand. Just by looking at someone's name, you know their skill level. You know if you need to network with that person. You know this entire arc of things that you need to know. That was not available until Shadow Crew, Carter Planet, Counterfeit Library comes around. Excuse me. How are we back there? Any questions while we're waiting on that? Okay, so what happens is that stays the status quo until two things happen. Tor and Bitcoin. How many people in the room collect or have Bitcoin? Anyone? One hand, couple of hands. So today it's at what, $3,600, something like that, off a high of 20,000. The reason Bitcoin is going for $3,600 today is not the blockchain. Everyone hears all this stuff about the blockchain. The reason Bitcoin is going at $20,000 is not the blockchain. It's because of a guy whose slide we don't have right now called Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht set up this site called Silk Road. Silk Road, we've got to please wait. Silk Road was on the dark web. How many people know what the dark web is? Okay, so just briefly while I was getting that up. For those who don't, the United States Navy developed this thing called the Tor browser. The Tor browser is what you have to access the dark web. All right, so the United States Navy develops it. It was built for intelligence operatives to be able to communicate with each other without outside governments being able to see what the hell was going on. It was also intended for dissidents to use in order to get around countries' firewalls, get messages out, whistleblowers, that type of thing. That goes open source, 1998. By 2001, memos are going around to United States law enforcement and worldwide law enforcement saying, hey, the chances of criminals using this to hide their location and identity is pretty high. We need to watch out for this type of thing. Turns out, for those who don't know, that the first adopters of technology, if you can use it to remain anonymous or launder money, the first adopters, criminals. Ross Ulbricht understood that. So Bitcoin comes out. Ross Ulbricht sets up Silk Road. He only accepts one currency, Bitcoin. Because back then people thought that it was an anonymous currency that you couldn't track who was buying it, who was cashing out, things like that. It turns out it's not very anonymous at all. There are now anonymous currencies. We've got Monero, Zcash, Dash, things like that are anonymous. So he accepts that. That's the reason that Bitcoin, outstanding, that's the reason that Bitcoin today is going at $3,600. That's also the reason that Bitcoin will not go to zero. It may go down to $37, but it won't go to zero because it still has a use, at least, to launder money. Koreans love it for that. Chinese love it for that. That is Ross Ulbricht, and that's one of his big quotes, so we should probably read that to give the guy proper credit. I want to use economic theory as a means to abolish the use of coercion and aggression amongst mankind. Just as slavery has been abolished most everywhere, I believe violence, coercion, and all forms of force by one person over another can come to an end. Now, he believed that. He believed that. He chose to implement it by becoming the largest drug dealer on the planet. For that, he got not one, and when they arrested him, they caught him with $24 million worth of Bitcoin. By all accounts, brilliant guy, but by all accounts, hadn't really spent any of it. He had taken one vacation. He was living in a room for let in San Francisco. He had used some of the money to try to hire hitmen to take out the competition. Other than that, he hadn't really spent anything. They give him not one, but 2 life sentences. Compared to this cat, you will note the Lamborghini in the background. Alexander Kazas, Alphabay. He ran a site called Alphabay. It was busted July 5th of last year. At the time, it was shut down by international law enforcement. It was the largest criminal network on the planet. How big was it? To give you an idea, when Shadow Crew was closed down October 26, 2004, we ended with 4,000 members. When Alphabet was shut down July 5 last year, 240,000 members. Times have grown, and they will continue to grow. Now, the motivations, it's easy enough. Ross actually believed what he was saying. He set up Silk Road because he thought he could change the monetary policy of the planet. Alexander Kazas, he just wanted some money. Owned at least one Lambo, owned a hotel, a couple houses, everything else. Now, Alexander, he didn't serve any prison time. They arrested him in Thailand, sent him to a jail there. They're holding him there. He promptly hangs himself because he knew he was going to get life in prison as well. Alphabet had been linked to at least 8 fentanyl deaths. He knew he was the ringleader of it. He was going to be charged with everything. He decides to check out. What's important is that we understand the motivations of the attackers. If you understand why someone is attacking your platform, you can better defend against that. It's not always cash. The result may be the same, but it's not always cash. It's important that we understand that. Now, these marketplaces, what's interesting is if you look at the way organized cybercrime functions, you've got a large communication channel, a forum type structure. That large communication channel has reviews, it has a vouching system, has all these things in place so that people know who to buy from, who to network with. Without that large communication channel, you really can't have anything else because you no longer have any understanding or idea who you can trust online. And it's all about trust because when you look at the necessities of cybercrime, there are 3 necessities. You have to be able to gather data, you have to be able to commit a crime, you have to be able to cash out. The problem is that a criminal is not good in all 3 things. A criminal is good in 1 thing. Sometimes he's good in 2. Very rare can he do all 3 things. That's why these forums and marketplaces exist. They allow that one specific criminal to network with other criminals who are good in areas where he is not. One of the big examples, Tesco. November 2016 on Alphabet. Brand new member. He comes on, he makes 1 post. That post says, hey, for the past year, I've been able to hit this bank $1,000 a week, no flags. 2 weeks later, Tesco is hit for $2.5 million. Now, how did that happen? That initial person, that one person makes that one statement on Alphabet. Someone, he had the information, but he didn't understand how to scale up the crime. He certainly didn't understand how to cash it out properly. But by him posting that information on Alphabet, someone within that 240,000 member structure notices the post. They say to themselves, hey, it doesn't look like he's bragging. He's not embellishing. Looks like he's just telling the truth. At least let me go over and talk to him. That second gentleman knew how to commit the crime properly. Now, if Alphabet were still up, you could track it from that point in time. That second guy starts posting advertisements on Alphabet looking for cashiers. Send me your resume. We're going to make a lot of money. He gets cashiers from the EU, the UK, the United States, Brazil, to $2.5 million. It's that type of platform, that type of structure, that environment that turns a $1,000 a week crime into a $2.5 million crime. And Tesco is kind of like the case study for a lot of these principles of how organized cybercrime operates. So you've got, it occurs through a series of failures. So what I mean by that is a lot of the time, the failures happen outside of the main target area that the criminal is trying to get into. If you look at synthetic fraud happens because it's a failure with Social Security Administration, failure with the credit bureaus, failure with the creditors, finally failure with the merchant itself. With Tesco, the exact same type of thing happens. 2015, FCI and Visa issue a global warning saying, hey, you banks need to watch out for criminals using debit card numbers, mobile device, signing on to these cardless payment apps, and cashing out like that. Tesco chose to ignore those warnings. At the same time, in order for a criminal to do that, the criminal has to know the card numbers. To try to figure out the algorithm of a bank's card numbers is pretty difficult. Not so much with Tesco, the numbers were sequential. I love that. I love that. So all you had to do was buy one Tesco number or have a bank account, add a digit to it, you've got another valid one. Sequential numbers. You're not supposed to, but Tesco did it anyway. Tesco also starts noticing test runs. So a more experienced criminal, before he actually hits you, he'll do test runs to make sure everything's set up right. Tesco sees these test runs, chooses to ignore them until they're hit for $2.5 million. That series of failures with the apps themselves, with Tesco, everything in general that led to that specific theft. Online criminals share information in the network. We've already talked about. They also do it because of lack of skill. So regional limits and lack of skill. When I was involved in cybercrime, we were hooked up with a lot of Ukrainians. Ukrainians simply could not use stolen credit card data in Ukraine. Even if they had the physical card, if you had an actual card owner there, you could not use your card in Ukraine. The entire thing was shut down. So they had to rely on people outside of area to use the information. That's still the way it is today. A lot of PII is stolen in the United States, but it's PII for the UK, Brazil, whatever else. So it's sold to whatever area is needed, or it's transferred over there so someone can cash out better than they can cash out in the area they're in. As I mentioned before, there are very few really skilled hackers, if you want to call them that. But you don't need a lot of really skilled hackers if you've got a platform set up like it's set up currently. You have someone that develops ransomware. Is he going to make more money trying to implement or distribute the ransomware himself, or by selling it as a service? He's going to make more money selling it as a service, and we see that time and time again. Cybercrime crosses borders and boundaries for the same reason, and just as the Tesco breach itself, cybercrime, most of it is not sophisticated. Cybercrime is not rocket science. It's not. These crimes are not difficult crimes. They're not highly sophisticated crimes. A new guy, he can come into and want to be a cyber criminal. What can he do? He comes in not knowing anything at all about breaking the law. He can buy a tutorial for $50 that'll walk him through step by step how to commit a specific type of fraud. If he's not comfortable with the tutorial, that's okay. For $600, he can take a live class taught by a master fraudster. It's 6 weeks long. The guy gets on Jabber, Wicker, something like that, walks him through hand in hand, step by step, how to commit a specific type of fraud, and it comes with a guarantee. If you don't make money by the time this class ends, I will refund your tuition. And he means it. He means it, because now customer service matters. There are so many sellers of this information, of these products, that if you don't have good customer service, no one has a reason to come to you to buy a product. People's identities? You can buy a fool's. Someone's complete identity profile from a low of $30 to a high of $130, depending on gender, location, credit score. Children are the number one victims of identity theft. 25%, 1 in 4 kids will be a victim. $2.08. $2.08. For that, you get the social, you get the kid's name, date of birth, mother's maiden, place of birth. Most of the time, the only thing you need is the social. That's $2.08. Everyone's information is out there. Most of the information comes from phishing. If you look at it, attacks, it doesn't matter what the attack is. Over 90% of all attacks are using known exploits. 92% of every single breach begins with a phishing attack. It begins with a phishing attack. If you look at spear phishing is 86% effective. It does not matter. It does not matter the amount of training someone has. It is still 86% effective. So if someone takes this notion to spear phish you, chances are you're done. Now, I like to say the reason that is because there's no patch for human stupidity. Now, that's a funny line. I mean, I love it. But that's not really the truth, because you're dealing with an attacker who understands the technology and understands human psychology enough to use that tech to manipulate someone into giving access, information, data, cash, when they know they shouldn't do that. It's not someone being an idiot. It's someone that's just being manipulated. If you look at this right here. So I've got Gollum@anglerfish.com to Gollum@anglerfish.com. Can anyone see the difference between the two anglerfishes? Let's blow it up. There's the first. There's the second. The dot over the I. Anyone know what that is? The I without the dot is a Unicode domain. It's been around forever. It's a Unicode domain. Comes with the security certificates, everything else. Now, most transactions take place using this thing. Are you going to notice, if you're going through several emails, are you going to notice that there's not a dot above an I? No, you're not. If you're in payroll and you're going through several hundred emails on a daily basis, are you going to notice that there's not a dot above an I? No, that is not Stupidity. That's just being manipulated. That specifically is $12 billion. That's $7 million a day. That is the number one way that business email compromise is committed today. Today, you use LinkedIn, you find a target, you spearfish the target because it's 86% successful. You get access to that target's email, you go through the email, you find some dummy in there, read all of his emails, that way you get the language and the relationship down correct. You create a Unicode domain in that dummy's domain and supplant everything. Then send out an email saying, I need you to send the money to this new bank account. $7 million a day, $12 billion in losses. Most of the information that's phished is PII. And I used to teach this. All crime should begin with identity theft. Why? Well, why would I set up a bank account under my name if I can do it under your name? Especially if you're local. That way, if the cops show up, it's kind of like this early warning system. I know it's time to move on. PII, that's most of it. And what we're looking for as a criminal, you're looking for this thing called a FOILS. It's a complete identity profile. Name, address, social, date of birth, mother's maiden, driver's license number, background check, credit report, any type of social media lookups that might be interesting. Those things are $30 to $130, depending on, again, location, gender, credit score. You can buy that ready-made, or you can make them yourself. How do you make them yourself? Pretty easy. That's the walkthrough right there. What you do is you go to the dark web. Usually you'll buy a bank login or you'll buy a credit card. Say you buy a credit card. The number one bin of a credit card for stolen credit cards is 414720. That's a Chase signature card. That's been the number one bin for years. Why? Well, it's a rewards card, so Chase expects a large purchase. Chase is not great with security. A lot of the people who own the Chase card, that specific Chase card, they travel a lot, so an out-of-area order is not highly questioned. So the chances of that going through is pretty good. Now, I can buy that card for $6 to $20. That's what that card's going to get. For that $6 to $20, I get the card number, expiration, 3-digit security, customer's name, address, email address, phone number. That's $6 to $20. Now, I can use that card immediately if I want to, get $500 to $1,000 worth of product. But that card comes with an available balance of probably $15,000 on it. So why would I only settle for $500 to $1,000? For me to optimize the card, for me to get everything that I can out of it, I need to do an ATO. To do the ATO, I need the FOILS. And that's how you make it. By the credit card number, you go to robocheck.cm, which lists the socials of 170 million Americans for $2.90. You buy the social, you buy the date of birth. From there, you go to legal websites like Ben Verified. You pull the background check, not only on the victim, but every single associate of the victim, in the hopes of getting the mother's maiden name. Once you have that, it's time to get the credit report. Where do you go? Annualcreditreport.com. Why? Because in the United States, everything's based on KBA, knowledge-based authentication. If you have the answers to the security questions, you can take over any accounts you want to take over. So what I do is pull the background check, go to Annual Credit Report. Annual Credit Report asks KBA questions, but they don't have a time limit on those questions. So I can literally sit there all day long with a background check, Google, try to find the answers. If for some reason I miss a couple of the answers, that's okay, because then I can go over to Credit Karma. They ask the exact same KBA questions, just with different answers except for the correct answer. So now I have the credit report. From there, Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn to find out where you work, Glassdoor to find out how much you make, and you're done. That takes 20 minutes. 20 minutes to do all that, usually. Everyone's information is out there. Last year we had 1,500 reported breaches, 2.6 billion records compromised. Everyone's information is out there. Doesn't matter your status in life, how important, how unimportant, how rich, how poor, doesn't matter. To illustrate this, I have taken the opportunity of pulling the information of one Donald J. Trump, because I, too, believe in making America great again. Hashtag MAGA, hashtag no one's safe, hashtag is that even legal? I don't know. That is his social, that is his date of birth, that is $2.90. Now would be the time that we pull our demo portion of the presentation. Anyone want to be a guinea pig and volunteer for me to pull their social security number? That's a demo. All right, look, I'm not really I'm not really going to pull your social, but I will see if you're in this database. And here's the deal. You're either in the database or you're not. There's no taking yourself out of the database. You're either there or you're not. Would anyone like to volunteer? Nobody. Ah, you! I hope you're in. I mean, for my presentation, I hope you're in there. For your sake, I hope you're not. Let's see. What's your name? Kathleen with a K. Leen. Last name? And state? Georgia. I may need your your maiden name. Maybe not. A lot of time with women, you have to look for the maiden name on this. Take a couple of seconds. Come on, please. I mean, don't be there for her. Be there for me. Come on. Okay, while we're doing that, while we're waiting for... All right, we have 12. We have 12 results. What's your date? Oh, well, your birth year? You should never tell a criminal your birth year. I'm just saying. It does not appear you're on there. So bad for me, good for you. Where was the other ballot? Right there. Yes, sir. Turns out about 60% of everyone in the audience will be on this one specific database. Let's see if we're right. Yes, sir. Matthew Swanson. Old man Swanson's boy. Actually, I'm not sure. Hold on just a second, Matthew. What's your maiden name? Gardner? You should never tell a criminal your maiden name. Double the opportunity. Matthew, I'll look you up in just a second. All right, so in the meantime, let's go over here to LuxSox. So to commit CNP fraud, things like that, a lot of the time, you need to hide your location. This is called LuxSox. The website is luxsox.ru. It's a premier provider to this day. It's still the premier provider for SOX 5 proxies. So if a carder, someone using stolen credit card information, trying to do an ATO, something like that, if he needs to appear, and ATO is a little different because you use an RDP, but we'll get into that later. Credit cards especially. If you're trying to use credit card data out of your area, and a lot of the times now, cybercrime has become so sophisticated that credit card information is local to the area for which you want to use it. All right, but when it's not, a lot of times you need a proxy, some way to hide your location and spoof the location of whoever you may be wanting to steal from. This is LuxSox. These proxies sell for anywhere from 45 cents up to about $1. How easy is it to use? Well, let's look at it. Okay, so blacklist, I'm wanting extra clean. And let's blow that up a little bit so people can see that a little bit better. Options. No, let's not worry about that. They've changed this a little bit. Okay, so go to America, actually USA. So say I'm in the state of Alabama and I've bought a credit card from Florida. Now I need to appear, I need the ordering IP address to appear as it's coming from Florida. Now a lot of times now you get the browser fingerprint of the order, of the actual card holder and everything else. There are ways to spoof that as well. But if you're just worrying about the location and everything, you can come here and I'll go down, say he's in Miami. That looks pretty decent. Let's see what we've got here. So I'll pull it up and it has the ISP is Cogent. Miami, the zip code is 33176. It was bought 3 times by other criminals in the past 24 hours. It was added 7 months ago. It was actually re-upped 4 months ago. The speed on that is a slow 57K. Ping on that's 5264. Now, one of the interesting things that LuxSox does is it will run it through a bunch of blacklists for you. So it runs it through Spamhaus. You can come over here to Blacklist as well. Barracuda, Spam Cop, Sorbs, CBL, Protected Sky, a couple of others. Price on that is 45 cents. Now, I can buy it for 45 cents. For 45 cents, if I buy that, that means that other people can come behind me, buy it, and use it as well. If I want to buy it outright, if I want to own that proxy so no one else can use it, it's going to run me $1.25. How easy is it to buy? Right there. Right there. I've bought the proxy. I can input that information either into a proxy manager or into the browser itself, and it will appear as if my computer is coming from Miami, regardless of where I am. That's the ease of how this stuff is done. I've not forgotten about you, Kathleen. 7 results, 1971. Please don't. You're not on there. Matthew, there's still hope. All right. Swanson. State? I would say it, but you already know. So after Alphabet shut down July 5th of last year, law enforcement also shut down a website called Hansa. But what happens is they don't announce they've shut Hansa down. Alphabet shuts down, law enforcement comes online, and they tell all these other guys in the criminal communities, they're like, hey, come over to Hansa Market. That's where all the business is. So they all go over to Hansa Market. 2 weeks later, law enforcement says, ha, we got you on that one too. So what happens because of that? That creates so much dissension, so much paranoia in the overall cybercrime community that people get scared to use the Tor browser. They think that there's an exploit for the Tor browser. Probably not. It's just idiots that don't know how to use it. But they get so worried that they start using the ClearNet, the surface web, Google-related crap. One of the places they go, oh, let's check you, Matthew. All right, what year were you born? I already told her. Come on, dude. 84, Summit Drive, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. You should never tell a criminal your address. So what happens here is this gives past addresses free. All right, so I can verify that's you. From there, for $2.90, it'd give me your date of birth, give me your social. From there, I go to Ben Verified, pull your background check, and go through that process I talked about. Now, what happens is that criminals, we tend to think that once we're a victim of identity theft, of cybercrime, that's it. The guy's got my information. I've already done everything I need to do. I don't have to worry about it again. That's not really the way that works. Cyber criminals specialize in one specific type of fraud. Tax fraud, Social Security account takeover, student loan, HELOC, whatever. He specializes in one type. He uses the information just for that. Once he's done with you, he has no further use for your info, but your info is still viable for other criminals in other areas. So what RoboCheck does is it discounts that information at a 50% off rate. Someone buys it for $2.90, the next person come along and buy it for $1.45 because it's still viable. And this crime never ends. Even once you no longer become viable credit-wise, someone can still take your information, put it on a fake ID, continue to commit other types of crimes. Okay, it never ends. So there's a Facebook group that deals with fraud, spamming, credit cards, everything else. That's Spammers Official is the name of that. We're going to go back to the presentation because we need to get through some of these other topics. All right, so that was the demo showing that people's information is out there. To do a lot of this, you have to have a drop address. You have to have a drop address, either to receive product, mail, bank cards, whatever. To get a drop address, because it's kind of interesting to walk through how this is done. What typically happens today is the guy gets on Zillow. He finds an address that's local to him, a drop address. He's going to look for a home for sale, maybe something for rent. He's going to look at the pictures. Hopefully the home is staged inside. Why? Because you don't want a home that looks like it's empty or abandoned. Now, once he finds a target that looks good, he has to get in the car. He has to drive down to the drop. Why? Number one, does anyone live in the house? Got to know that. Nothing worse in the world than going up to get a package or a piece of mail off someone's porch and the door opening. Done that, been there, not fun. So, because of that, what type of neighborhood is he looking for? He's not looking for an upper class neighborhood. Because in an upper class neighborhood, a lot of the time, one of the spouses is at home. He's looking for a working class neighborhood, a neighborhood where people are gone during the day. So he's going to look at the house, make sure it doesn't look abandoned, make sure it looks good. That's his drop address. Next thing he's going to do is he's going to sit in the car, or he's going to drive around the neighborhood. He's going to find out what time the mail runs. USPS, FedEx, UPS. Because there's nothing worse then the mail running at 7 p.m. when everyone's home. He's wanting a neighborhood, again, working class people are gone during the day. Hopefully he's got a neighborhood where the neighbors don't pay attention to each other, where those front blinds are drawn. Best neighborhood in the world. Pull those front blinds so no one can see in here. Well, you can't see out either. Criminals love that. You want a house or homes where the mailbox is close to the street. That way you can just pull up, get the mail out of the box, stay in the car. You want a home where the doorway is visible from the street because you don't want to pull up in the driveway 3 to 4 times checking to see if there's a package or a piece of mail on the doorstep. That's the type of neighborhood that you want. Homes packed close together, absolutely fine. Ring doorbell, crap. That's the type of neighborhood you're looking for. Neighbors are clueless, time to mail run, unoccupied during the day. Now, once you have the drop, what can you do? What do you want to do? You do CMP fraud, you can order product, and everybody already knows about CMP fraud. What I tend to do is I tend to break it down into different types of groups. So there are these types of groups for CMP orders. If you're looking at physical goods, for a carder to run a drop address, for him to do all the stuff that I just talked about, the product that he is getting has to be worth it. It is not going to be some sort of crap. It's going to be laptops, it's going to be phones, it's going to be something that turns over quickly. Because he has to do all this. Not only does he have to do this, but the day of the order, he has to get his ass out of bed, go down to the drop, and risk potentially being arrested. So it has to be worth it to him. Okay? Now, the problem is, most products don't fit that description. Last year, we had a problem with Keurig coffee makers. You go to the Keurig website, you can use the Tor browser, wide open. The problem is that Keurigs sell for $300. Criminals resell them at 80% retail, $240. $240. That's not worth it for a criminal to run his own drop. But you could order hundreds of these things. So what happens is that Christmas on eBay, there were several sellers that listed 500 of these things. Yeah, they're gifts. I don't know how I ended up with them, but I don't need them. And they would sell them at 80% retail. They'd send you a case of free coffee. It's this whole triangulation fraud. That happens because of items that aren't worth it to the carder to set up his own drop address. Same thing applies to reshippers. It's that out-of-area stuff. You are not going to ship a product to Venezuela or the Ukraine, so they have to rely on shippers, either complicit or non-complicit. The reason I show you this, and the same thing applies for virtual goods, payment processor fraud, you have to understand where you are in the criminal spectrum. Where do you fit? That's the issue. Once you understand how the criminal is going to target you, you can better defend yourself. If you're looking at virtual goods, you don't need to have security that's going to look for billing and shipping not being the same. The criminal is going to put those the same. That's all there is to it. So you have to be aware of this kind of stuff. If you're looking at physical goods for reshippers, those orders may bounce all over the United States. So you need to define the security based on that. Synthetic fraud. How many people know what synthetic fraud is? No? Okay. 2011, the Social Security Administration, they randomized Social Security numbers. When they did that to combat identity theft. But when that happened, that allows a criminal to fabricate Social Security numbers out of thin air or to use a child's Social Security number. And the idea is this: create a synthetic or a ghost in the system, a fake person, put that person in the credit bureau system, pump up the credit, cash out. 2011 Social Security Administration, they allowed that to happen. So what you can do now is you buy a child's Social Security number, $2. You take the social, you add a name to it, an adult date of birth, an address, a phone number, you apply for credit. Credit bureaus don't know you exist until you tell them you exist. So the initial application for credit will be denied, but when it's denied, it actually builds a credit report in that synthetic profile. 0 credit score, brand new file. The idea now is to pump it up as quickly as you can. What do? First stop, open source intel. Go to listyourself.net. It's a free white pages listing service. You put in that information. A couple weeks later, that address starts receiving physical spam mail in that name. At the same time, any type of open source crawlers start to relate that name online to that address. You also apply for rewards cards. Grocery, pharmacy, airline. You may build a Facebook page. You don't have to, but you can. That takes care of open source. Next stop, Capital One, you apply for a secured credit card. Why? Because for $39, Capital One gives you a credit limit of $200. You're already making money on that profile. Doesn't do a damn thing for the credit score. For the credit score, you have to rely on what's called authorized user trade lines, credit piggybacking. It's legal in the United States. Works like this. I would come to you, I would say, Kathleen, I know you got good credit. You know, I got bad credit. Why don't you add me on as an authorized user of one of your cards? Wait. I don't get access to your card. I don't. It doesn't affect your credit score whatsoever. I'm just a user on there. And you'll look at me and you'll say, Brett, you look trustworthy. I think I will do this. So you'll add me on. Now the next reporting cycle of that one specific card, that card's history now becomes my credit history. If I do that with a synthetic profile, if I add 2 of these authorized user trade lines on there, I can go from a 0 to a 760 credit score in 30 to 45 days. It has an extra benefit. If the card that I add on is 10 years old, I've set up the credit profile that's 7 days old, I add a 10-year-old card on, all of a sudden my account, that synthetic profile, is now 10 years old. The credit report is. What do you do then? What do you want to do? If you're a brand new guy that doesn't understand crime at all, you can apply for a $20,000 loan and get it, go get a car, whatever. If you're more experienced with identity theft, you can get the cards in, make payments for 6 months, cash out $30,000 to $40,000. Or you can do what a lot of people read about in the news. You mix real information with synthetic. So what I would do is I would go to RoboCheck, I'd pull your name, social security, date of birth. The only thing I want to do with that is apply for an EIN, an employer identification number. That's the only thing I want to do with that. At the same time, I'm going to buy a child's social security number, add your name to it, your date of birth. It's got a different social, a different address, different phone number, address outside of your zip code. I'm going to build that synthetic profile up that's in your name to that 760. Once that's done, I'm going to take the real EIN, the synthetic credit of 760, mix them together, apply for business credit. Why? The application for business credit doesn't look at the business. It looks at the person applying. That person, that synthetic, has a 760. Profit potential, $200,000, 6 months. This is the fastest growing form of identity theft on the planet. 80% of all new account fraud, 20% of all credit card charge-offs, 5% of all credit card debt. $50 billion in losses. The problem is, as we illustrated here, no one really knows about it. Banks tend to write it off as, well, it's a real person, they just didn't pay the bill, so they don't even write it off as fraud. This is eating banks alive. One of the other things, new account fraud. So because of EMV, the chips have really put a hurt on all counterfeit credit card operations. So now you can do new account fraud. You get someone's full information like a walkthrough. What you can do is you can steal the mail from the porch, as I already walked through that. You can go to USPS.com with a prepaid debit card registered in that victim's name. You can have the mail forwarded or the address changed. Works like a charm, even though the envelopes say do not forward, about 50% of them are forwarded anyway. You can ATO a low-level account, meaning you get the credit report, you find a utility on there. If the utility is listed, water, power, something like that, you call in, spoof the phone number of the customer, of the actual customer, call in and say, I just need to update the billing address. Most of the time, they don't even ask security questions. They'll update the billing address because you're not changing service address, just billing address. Because that account is listed on the credit report, when they update the billing address, it adds that drop address to the credit report. You can then start setting up new accounts, get the cards in. You can do the dispute process on Experian. You just simply start a dispute, put the new address in, don't submit. Experian scrapes the information, adds it to the credit report. You can social engineer the account, which you just kind of talk the person into sending the card, or you can do the old school trick of applying for credit. You get a credit application, put the drop address on it, it will be denied. 30 to 60 days later, that address is on the credit report. That is the success of new account fraud. 2 people in Charlotte last summer, cash in pocket, $600,000, stealing mail. They set up new accounts for everyone on one specific street, pulled the fools on every single person, put cash in pocket, $600,000. Now, of course, they got arrested, but it's that type of news report that a criminal reads and says, I can do that. How did they get arrested? I just need to stop that. So new account fraud. ATO, and we're finishing up. ATO. So account takeover. And nowadays, all accounts are valuable. Back when I was doing it, it was credit and bank. So I'm going to just talk about that. But all accounts have value for someone that's trying to do ATO. If I'm doing bank, say I buy a bank login for $20, and I'm wanting to do an ACH to try to withdraw some money, I have to have the fools. I have to take over the account. So the first thing I need to know is, do they have two-factor authentication? If they do, how is two-factor implemented? Is it implemented via email? If it is, it's crap. That's easy enough to get by. As we know, spear phishing is 86% successful. If it's implemented by phone, we'll walk through that. If it's not, if they don't have two-factor, what do? Pick up the phone, spoof the phone number of the account holder, call in to customer service. The only thing I'm going to do is ask what my available balance is. That's it. Now, when I call in, I'm spoofing the number. The number that shows on customer service's screen is the actual number. It lays that base level of trust. The only thing I'm going to do is say, what's my available balance? Yeah, I'm here to check my available balance. They're going to ask 2 security questions. One of those may be mother's maiden name. I got to the point where I did not even want mother's maiden. But I would say some name, but with confidence. Johnson. Sorry, sir, that's not what we've got. Well, what do you got? Sorry, sir, we're not going to tell you what we've got. Well, look, I don't know what you got, but I know what my mom's name is. What are you guys doing up there? What are they trained to do at that point? They're trained to ask 2 other security questions, which I have the answers to. Then what happens? They change the mother's maiden name to what I want them to change the mother's maiden name to. As I'm hanging up, at that point is the purpose of the call. Oh, by the way, can you update the phone number on file? Yes, sir, we can. Works like a charm. Why does it work, though? It works because that phone number, the spoof, adds a base level of trust. I layer trust on that by creating a problem, creating a diversion, building a rapport with the customer service agent, so that by the time I'm ready to hang up, they're concentrated on fixing the problem that we had with the wrong mother's maiden. I'm not even worried about that anymore. I'm now focusing on the real purpose of the call, updating the phone number. Works like a charm like that. If two-factor is there, you need to be able to take over the phone account. Nowadays, phone companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, they've got the special PIN numbers and everything. Kind of hard to take that over. Not really. On the dark web, you can buy those profiles for $15. $15. Gives you the PIN number, the secret password, whatever you want to. Conclusion, we're all screwed. It's over. Run for the hills. Best thing you can do is disconnect, get a shack, generator, send out smoke signals. Okay, maybe not. Just as cybercrime itself is not rocket science to commit, it's not rocket science, it's not complicated to protect yourself. First and foremost, freeze the credit of every single person in the house. As of September 21st, it became free. Free. Freeze the credit of every single person in the house, including children, because children are the #1 victims of ID theft. Monitor all accounts, because the only thing a credit freeze does is it stops new account fraud. Great for kids. For adults, it's only 4%. So you have to monitor all accounts, place alerts on the accounts as well. At the same time, understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum. We've talked about that. Security awareness training. Is your training for compliance, or is it to make a difference? HIPAA, compliance. Security training should be the same way a criminal would target you. Yes, it's okay to check boxes. If you have to do it for compliance, do that, but also do security training to make a difference. Better yet, teach the employee to be safe everywhere. Online safety, if they do it at home, it will translate to the job. Apply all updates. That is the reason that Equifax hit. Think of an update as a broadcast to every single criminal on the planet, telling them which door to knock on. BYOD, how many people surf Facebook from work? Come on, LinkedIn. Any non-work related site from work, come on. It's normal, we do that. But understand that the weakest device on your network is exactly how strong your network is. So you're not going to stop it. Let them have access outside of the data that's important. Routers do that now. You can buy an outside router if you want to that doesn't connect to the important data. Strong passwords. How many people, come on now, let's try this. How many people use the same password across multiple websites? Come on, it's like an AA meeting. I'm Brett Johnson, I use the same password across multiple websites. It's okay, 80% of everyone does that. The answer to that is a password manager, because we're never trained on how to come up with a secure password. We think they're secure, but they're not. We use the same base. We may add a few characters or a date or a number or something like that on it. Use a password manager, takes that out of your hands. Layered security. One security approach, whether it be browser fingerprinting, machine learning, whatever, one security approach is not enough. There is no silver bullet. You have to layer security. Security policy to include everyone. Everyone. Call center fraud is so popular because criminals understand that a lot of those call center people don't get security training. It's pigeonholed. So security with everyone. That's the end of the presentation. I'm going to be available through the day if anyone would like to talk, ask questions, or anything else like that. Thank you for listening to me.